Good morning. It is 6:38 a.m. on Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So I included technical difficulties in my title this morning because although it didn't just happen and I didn't just discover it, I'm feeling grumpy this morning about realizing that for a couple of my streams recently, including episodes of So Many Levels, uh, various things shifting around had resulted in me recording my own audio with my webcam's microphone instead of my nice microphone. And that resulted in those not sounding as good, and I'm just feeling grumpy about it right now. I was re-listening to a little bit of it just because we are preparing for our next session tonight, and that just because occasionally, I have certain little things that I check in order to make sure that I'm getting audio at all, but somehow the audio device, I think probably what part of what happened is I installed a new thing that was going to let me capture video for when I was doing streams of Cadence of Hyrule. And because I added a new audio device, that probably messed everything up. And so at least I am aware now of the issue and should be able to resolve it in the future. But it's just one of those things to realize, like, wait a minute, why does it sound like that? It's a fascinating thing, I think, technology and our reactions to it, because it's this constant progress of something that we couldn't do at all a year ago becomes infuriating when it doesn't work perfectly on the first try. When something that you could never do at all, but now because it's slightly difficult, that's just enraging. And these things happen, so it's just the weird human nature of when you're excited about a new possibility, I think is why we have that reaction of demanding perfection of brand new novel things. I don't know. I wonder sometimes, though, like, the other thing that I was going to talk about is anime enthusiasm. And what I mean by that specifically is that I've been watching, as I talked about, was that just yesterday? I think so. Uh, the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, which, correction from yesterday, I think I said it was from the 80s. It's actually from the mid-90s. It's a classic, but it is also not as formational as I was originally thinking. Like, it was very influential if things came after it, but it was also deconstructing many of the things that came before it, as opposed to being like the initiator, which doesn't make it like that's not a criticism. It's just a restatement of the correct place in the whole, anime cinema verit. No, that's not what I mean. Oeuvre, perhaps. Anyway, the whole point of it was just to say that I read an article on Kotaku that was specifically called "You Are Allowed to Not Like Evangelion." Now, as it happens, I do like it. I'm not all the way finished. I've finished the main episodes. I have not yet watched the movie. So my understanding is there's definitely a movie called The End of the Evangelion, and then there's also a movie called seems like it's had a variety of titles, and so it's on Netflix as Death True Squared, and it was also called Death and Rebirth, and a couple of other things at various points, I believe. And my understanding is that that consists of part recap of the series and part a little bit of a side story. Well, so I only just started talking about anime. So the interesting. So okay, I kind of got sidetracked there, just talking about like what the different movies are. So I've watched the 26 main episodes now. I know that there's also these 2 additional pieces of content, and I've also gleaned from the broader internet a little bit of context of knowing that the end of the main episodes had a reputation as being a rushed, weird, abstract ending instead of actually a proper finish to the story, and a lot of people really didn't like it. But then the movie comes along to sort of fix that, I guess. I haven't watched the movie yet, so I'll have to see what it does. I can certainly understand, having watched, so I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who's watching it now, but I can certainly understand, having watched the end of the anime episodes, why a lot of people would really not like that. And I also certainly feel like I didn't hate what happens. I thought it was really interesting, but I do also think that it's not great as an ending. It does feel like there's missing pieces even still. And so, yeah, so I think that it makes sense that people would feel the way they did. But part of the thing is, like, even this is a story that I really like, but what I was thinking about is just this article that's saying you are allowed to not like it. And it's just a reminder that occasionally when we are very passionate about a story, we can have this desire to share that with other people, but that desire, which can be good, can turn poisonous and toxic, because if this other person doesn't like it, or doesn't like it enough, then they just don't understand it, and that makes them wrong, and you have to fix that. And I get that impulse, but it's not a good impulse. And so it's interesting, I thought, just to consider that, given that one of the whole central themes of Evangelion is this idea of loneliness and personal boundaries and walls, and what separates you from other people, and can you ever know them? And so the idea that is in particular a story that perhaps overly enthusiastic fans can become aggressive when it's perceived that someone doesn't like it. And I could see that happening, and just think it's kind of an interesting expression of one of the exact themes of the show, which is to say what people do when they're trying to defeat loneliness. And so that's just kind of an interesting element. So most of the characters, all have their issues, and it's really, I think, part of what's interesting as the story develops is that it really, we start with the main character Shinji, who has some various obvious issues. You know what? I'm actually running already pretty long. I'm going to talk more about it when I've finished the actual, the movie and everything. So, because right now I don't want to talk too much about the themes when I haven't actually seen the end, so to speak. In any event, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.